Well, hello there, Janice Mueller.
Hello,
I like your
Angie.
very German last name. How did you get to
Yes.
that?
Well, I'm a South African living in Switzerland, but when I married my husband with the Muller surname, I didn't realize that in German it's a bit like having a surname of Smith.
Yeah.
But what I've also learned in the German-speaking world is that I can't pronounce my own last name because every time I have to give it for a loyalty program or something, and I say my name is Janice Mueller, and they'll go, "Is it Muller or Mueller?" And I go, yes. Um, and now I
Yes,
just save it on my phone and show them how it's spelt because clearly I'm not doing it correctly.
maybe you should say Müller as in Müller Milch, because every
Aha,
German knows that.
there we go.
Yeah, so, I sometimes, when people look for me, I tell them Weinberger, like the drink, and then they get it.
Good tip. I'll
Do you
definitely put that one in my back pocket.
do you have a fun fact for our viewership and listenership?
Well, what was interesting about that question, because you gave me a tip that it might come up with, was that it was one that is not on the internet. And I had to think a little bit. And I, what came to mind was I grew up with a very outdoor focused father with a passion for adventurous camping and deep sea fishing. So as a teen, um, he taught me to reverse like a trailer with a boat on it so that we could do surf launches and he could get ready to launch the boat through the surf. And I grew up fishing and filleting fish and doing spit roast barbecues for the fishing club, which proved to be very valuable in my university years, where I worked as a part-time catering assistant to earn some extra money. So I also was reflecting and thinking, I think everybody should work in the service industry at some stage in their life, either in a restaurant or a call desk situation, service center, because I think it's character building and you get to deal with people from all walks of life. So that's a little fun fact that
Mhm.
people might not know about me.
No, I agree. I agree about the service industry and, you know, that you should, in your youth, do a job that is absolutely character building. Like I worked on an assembly line once when I was like trying to earn money for my first vacation with my boyfriend, my first boyfriend. And then I decided, working on that assembly line, I made a decision to go to university, no matter what. I said, this is not my career path. Definitely too boring
Mhm.
and too fast. It was
Yes.
too fast for me. Janice, you and I originally met in probably 2018.
Yep.
There is proof on Facebook of the first time we met when your professional women's network engaged me for a panel discussion. And that's the first time we met. And then we met a few times afterwards.
Mhm.
And it's always, for me, it's always a pleasure to notice that some of these relationships that we build are sustainable and long lasting. What I discovered though about you and I is we have a lot of shared values and we have so much in common. So maybe we will start with the big why question.
Mhm.
Why do you do what you do?
Um, I think the key thing with my experience as a global growth and transformation leader, what is pivotal in running a transformation program, change program, executing a strategic vision is about engaging people. And so my why is very much centered around bringing people along for the journey, being able to understand why they're being asked to implement whatever the change is. And really, I enjoy building that sense of community and shared purpose as we actually execute and deliver business value. So I think that's a big part of why I enjoy being involved in this kind of work.
And it sounds so easy when you say it, but we know it's fairly complicated to do what you just said.
Well,
How
it's
how
actually
was your
funny.
journey to
Yeah.
that space?
Um, Not a linear one. So I actually started my career as a commercial attorney many years ago in South Africa, and while I was practicing law, I was involved in a very big mediation. Got to know the family really well, who were fighting to save their business, and realized I was so engaged in the people side of it, and I really did not enjoy fighting for every cent that had to be monitored and pulled in during the process. So I pivoted from that, went in-house at an advertising agency, and then ultimately, following a business degree, started my career in the corporate world in a technology company. Um, and that company was based in South Africa, but was expanding rapidly globally. And through that organization, which was then called Dimension Data, subsequently NTT, I was with them for nearly 20 years, but
Mm.
held multiple different roles
Mhm.
as market research. Then I was the European marketing director, which involved a move from South Africa to Europe, and working across 11 countries in Europe. And then something at that stage changed. We were starting to roll out massive changes in terms of how the business functioned, how to get different businesses that we'd acquired over the years to operate on the same platforms and systems. And I got pulled into driving strategic transformation, first at a European level and then at a global level. And that was like a switch that went on of this is what I really enjoy doing. But all of those other experiences helped in being able to be effective at crafting good communication or knowing how to engage with people or who to engage in which countries to help execute on a strategic transformation. So that was part of the journey that got me into the field of really being focused on change management and strategic transformation initiatives in global companies.
And the journey took you also to several countries.
Yes.
You're like, uh-huh, a perpetual expat.
Well, you go through a phase of that. I think I I learned a couple of things along the way there.
Mhm.
I was based in South Africa and came over for a conference in Europe with our teams. And there were some things that were not working so well at the time across our European teams. And I pointed it out to the head of marketing for Europe. And he was like, well, if you've got an opinion and you know how to help us, then come and help us. And I learned very quickly. So, if you're going to point out that something is not working well, be prepared to do something about it, as opposed to just say it and then expect somebody else to solve the problem. And that led to me coming over for a temporary contract in Belgium that was supposed to last for, I think it was 4 months at the time. And in that period, the CEO of Europe said, oh, this isn't enough. We need you for a year. So people who've lived the expat life will know visas get in the mix. And as a South African, it was doubly complicated. So I had to go back to South Africa to sort out visas, came back, and then HR went, no, 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 no. Belgium's too expensive from a tax point of view. You need to be in Luxembourg. So I was based in Luxembourg for 5 wonderful years because I've made really good friends in it's a gorgeous small country and engaged with people there locally in between having a global job. And then my last transition was when I met my husband, who was based in Switzerland, and I was fortunate having a global role that I could transition to our Swiss operations, and then landed in Switzerland. Um, and the lessons like over that period for me were I do quite a lot of sport. So like when you're trying to get into a new routine or rhythm, I had what I called the rule of three. It was like you need 3 weeks to get into a new habit. If you're starting a new training pattern,
Hmm.
you need 3 months to settle into a new role. Whether you transitioning internally or starting a new role, the famous 100 days,
Yeah, yeah.
and you need 3 years to get to grips with the country because it's only I'll get to about 2 years and think, I'm never going to settle into this place. I don't know how it works. And then, sort of somewhere between 2 and 3 years, I can tell somebody where the good hairdresser is, or which doctor to go to, or how to navigate the train system, or something clicks in that period. And then it starts feeling like home.
That's amazing. Yeah, I always say the first 2 years in Switzerland are for most
Mm,
people the hardest. Then after 5 years, they go through another small dip. I think it's
mhm.
like a decision dip. Do I stay or do I go?
Yeah.
And then they stay, and then maybe after 10 years, it's another decision whether, you take the nationality, go through that process, and then,
Mhm.
you sort of, you have your 2 feet in the door, can't get out anymore, because then life is just too good.
Yeah. Well, I think the other thing is I love living in Switzerland. We are an outdoor-oriented, active family. It suits our lifestyle down to the ground. But I've got friends who have absolutely craved the action of London or New York, or have gone, this is just too quiet for me.
Uh-huh.
But I just think we have a wonderful balance. I hop on the train in 20 minutes, I'm in Zurich, and I'm going, "Oh, we've got a city on our doorstep and it's fantastic." And I look out my window and I can see Rigi and looking forward to the ski season. So for me, Switzerland just ticks a lot of boxes, personally, in terms of our family lifestyle and what it affords us.
Yeah, wonderful. And Janice, you touched several times on the T word, technology.
Mm.
So we both like technology. But what I find really amazing about you is that, you dig in AI at the moment as, as if there was like a war coming. I mean, you learn everything that there is to learn about AI. You go to MIT. This is the second course that you're doing there right now. Yeah.
Mm.
Can you talk a bit more about, what got you into this frenzy and
I
how it
think,
was?
you know, you can do one of two things. You can sort of fear what's coming, or you can really lean in and try and understand it. And I was very fortunate. I only realized it after I'd left the company. I was with Thomson Reuters in strategy and growth. But that company is very data driven. It sits on a wealth of content for legal and tax professionals. So they really very quickly got behind evolving the AI capabilities we already had,
Uh-huh.
but making sure that we had access to advanced AI tools in secure environments so that we could experiment and play with it. So that piqued my interest. But when I found myself in a situation of now having time and sort of pivoting my career, I thought I've got to understand it more. And it's not understanding it from a technology point of view, although you've got to have a grasp of how does this thing function, how do I protect security around it. Um, but for me, it's more about really trying to get to grips with how do we function as a society? How do we keep the human in the loop? How do we leverage it to help? So you'll see organizations like AI for Good or Technology for Good. I do believe there's a component of that, but you've got to go in with eyes wide open and know where and how to sort of ring fence some boundaries.
Hmm.
And to do that, I had to deepen my understanding. So I've actually done two completed 2 certificate modules at MIT on applied generative AI and leadership for the age of AI, and then decided to complete the full professional certificate course. And what's fascinating about that is, it's MIT, Institute of Technology, sort of the equivalent of ETH in Zurich, and it's about technology, but it's so much about people as well. So the focus at the moment is understanding culture and understanding how to lead innovation in cross-cultural environments, because that's part and parcel of how will people receive and make use of AI in their work or social contexts. And I'm fascinated by that.
That would be so up my alley. I just need like, a 48-hour day to do
Yes.
all the things that I want to do.
Yeah.
But as we know, time is stretchable, right? We talked about that
Well, it's
already.
a challenge with having a curious mind because there's so many things to be curious about.
Yeah. And I wanna ask on another topic that is, I think, again, we share the ideas. You talk about the human connection
Hmm.
and people-centered approaches. I would almost say, it's a humanistic kind of thinking that you bring to the workplace.
Hmm.
How do you apply people-centered approaches? What do you mean by, bringing the human connection? And how do you leverage also now your communities and your networks to
Mm.
get to where you want to be?
So I think there's two sides of the coin in that question. So let me take a step back and give an example from a corporate context, where about 18 months ago, I took on the leadership of a team. It was market and competitive intelligence team that was really not not well perceived. They were going through the tasks of what they were expected to do, but there
Hmm.
was a bit of an internal perception problem about how much they could do.
Hmm.
And at the start of that engagement where I took on the leadership, I went over and met the team. They were based in India, and we spent a number of days together, twofold. One was for us to come together as a team of 12 people and work out what is the value we're trying to provide to the business. Are we all understanding it the same way?
Hmm.
But then also understanding who the individuals were in the team and what their respective ambitions were. So I spent time with each of the people, and then together we workshopped what our vision was and how we intended to get to that, and then started executing on that plan and building up almost a internal communication engine, as well about what they could deliver. And then in parallel with that, I had to go back to key stakeholders and say, hey, I've been there, I've met these people face to face. They are brilliant. This is what they can do. Have you leaned in to ask them about this aspect of, I see you need support there? And it was about building the connections, particularly when you're in a dispersed global environment.
Hmm.
And you get so busy in your own day job that you forget to look above the parapet and realize that there's somebody there that can help you.
Yeah.
And in building those connections, trust built up. We started profiling the individuals in the team, their capabilities and confidence went up. And if I fast forward to a year later, um, the some of them were being called out by the CEO of the company for their contribution to the company in supporting research and competitive intelligence initiatives. And it was a complete 180
Mm.
from where that perception had been 18 months before.
Hmm.
And that's what I mean by people-centered. It's not, somebody saying, go in and sort out that team, make sure that the value proposition, sort out the processes, it's not working, is nothing without getting to grips with who are the people who are accountable for delivering the service? Because everything's a service at the end of the day,
Hmm.
where there's a human in the loop. So that's sort of on a small scale, and then on a larger scale, driving change initiatives. I think very often leaders think because we have communicated this to our leadership teams and everybody's got the targets, the company will get it done. And that has very often led to painful or even failed change initiatives. Because if you don't really get into the interactions with the people who are expected to change the way they're working and do their jobs in a different way, and work out who are the key influences that are going to be a roadblock or a supporter, you're going to be pushing wet string up a hill trying to roll something out. And so what I've always tried to do, if I think back to two large transformation initiatives that I've been involved with, in the one we had a very structured engagement where we rolled out a campaign for change agents in 5 geographic regions, went and ran 3-day workshops with them to really address what we were trying to achieve, give them the opportunity to ask the challenging questions about what this meant for their jobs, but then also equip them with the tools to then cascade the information further into their teams. So again, it comes back to people engagement, and people work for and with people, even in our AI environment. And with the aid of technology tools, there's still a human in the loop for anything to be delivered effectively, to validate that something's correct, to the engagement you have with either your customers or your people is too valuable to not have a human in the loop, to assist with that and help drive that change. So that's what I mean by a people-centered approach, and really driving that engagement to execute effectively.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. How do you leverage your networks right now?
Personally,
Yeah, yeah.
um, yeah, that's interesting. It's I think two things that if I reflect on, was in about 2015, I did a leadership development program with my then company, and then realized I'd been living and working in Switzerland for 5 years at that stage,
Uh-huh.
but I knew nobody in Switzerland.
Yeah,
My job was global.
yeah.
I had no need to interact with anybody in Switzerland other than at that stage the mommy network, because I had a young child and no family, so I leaned into the local moms network. So I actively went out and looked for what was then Professional Women's Network and joined as a member, or became a more active member. I had been a member, and then ultimately that led to a leadership position. So that was one avenue. And then the other is I was coming out of that blur of work and having a young child who was 3 or 4 at the time, and starting to have that time for myself again, was leaning into the sports network, because I love cycling and sports. And so I joined a cycling club, and so started building up that community that I needed to feel at home in Switzerland. It couldn't all be anchored around my husband and son.
Yeah.
It needed to be broader than that. Um, so now, if I fast forward, many of the connections I made through either PWN, the Professional Women's Network, as an association, has led to friendships and connections, particularly in Switzerland, where it's a relatively small business community that I still know today. And still, last week I was at a business luncheon, with an alumni association, and met 3 people there that I knew by virtue of other associations like PWN. And so you keep crossing paths at these things. And then what I've had to do, there's this lovely German saying that I really appreciate. You've got to jump over your own shadow. Is when you're out there either looking for work or potentially considering a consulting opportunity or something like that, is jump over my own shadow to actually ask for help or lean in and let the people know that I'm connected with that what I'm doing and what I'm looking for. And that's a conversation. It's not just a note. It's really building up a relationship
Yeah,
of conversation. And that takes time and effort.
yeah, absolutely. What would you advise a younger version of you, say 30-year-old Janice, if you could go back in time?
Huh. The advice for 30-year-old Janice might not be the same advice for a 30-year-old today, because one of the things I would say strongly consider doing a few years at a consulting firm. Because I think, I'm talking like one of the big four or, McKinsey, Deloitte's,
Hmm.
KPMG, because what I have seen, if you have aspirations for a corporate career, there's a lot of value in that discipline that they provide in terms of frameworks and models and ways to approach and think through certain problems.
Hmm.
That and just having that as part of your career trajectory is helpful later in life when they say, "Do you have consulting expertise?" Um, I think the other piece, which I would advise, which I think I did lean into naturally because it's my nature, is to always be connecting. So the biggest thing as I sort of progressed through my career, I took on leadership of teams, and if they were traveling somewhere to an office for a particular project, the the brief I would always give them is make sure you meet people who are also not just in the project team. Walk down the passage and go and say hello to Sam because she's working on managed services, and just ask what she does. Always be connecting because you never know when that connection might be something that will fit into a solution you haven't thought of, or might be somebody who could help out to connect you to the right person for an initiative down the line. Know the lay of the land, who's doing what. So that peripheral vision
Yeah.
in a large corporation is so valuable instead of just going, this is my job and this is what I need to focus on.
And
There's
yeah,
particularly today, human connection is critical.
yeah, and I think a lot of people aren't very good at that. I mean, it comes up a lot in my coaching. That people don't even think about it, like
Yeah.
think very much in structures, and that's not only in Switzerland, it's not only a Swiss thing. Very
Mm,
much technology driven processes,
mm,
and underestimate the value of making these, let's say peer level connections that we naturally
yeah.
always, I would say, we were like lucky in our careers that we got seminars,
Mm,
leadership training, workshops, where these things naturally happened.
yeah. It also, I'll be honest, took me quite a lot of time, several executive coaching sessions with various people to recognize it as a skill.
Hmm.
Like I honestly thought, well, everybody does this.
Hmm.
And then realized with time, everybody doesn't do this.
Hmm.
And there are certainly, there's an argument to say that there's certain roles that really require that sort of tunnel vision and focus. But I think that's dangerous in today's world. I think now more than ever, that human connection and awareness in social or corporate contexts is so valuable, um, and will be even more so going forward because who knows what ideas spark in an interaction.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree with you. Now, Janice, what have you got coming up? tell us a few exciting things.
Yeah, well, one of the
Christmas.
things that I am excited about, besides the fact that Zurich switches on its Christmas lights, because I love Christmas, and even having grown up in a sunny Christmas in the Southern Hemisphere, there is nothing better than the winter lights at Christmas time in Zurich and some of the villages around. But on that day, I'll also be hosting a global masterclass workshop on a taste of the business model and value proposition canvas. And this is about how to leverage a framework, back to some of the frameworks I was discussing, to distill like the raw ideas, either for a new business. I've used it a couple of times for a function within in a corporate environment for us to distill like what is our value proposition to the business? What are the customer jobs that we're trying to get done? How are we trying to ease their pain to better distill what our value proposition is? So it's going to be a really sharp, short dip into leveraging these tools, and just to give a taste of it and a sense of how you can use a framework to declutter your thinking and get some clarity to move things forward and better articulate what you are trying to do, either as a individual business or as a function within a larger business.
Yeah, that's going to be exciting. So much good stuff coming. Well, Janice, it was great talking to you, and I look forward to seeing you again shortly.
Always a pleasure. Lovely chatting.
Have a good day. Bye
Thank you.
bye.
You too. Bye bye.